The Eagles are the number one seed in the NFC. And oh my gosh, that Eagles defense played its best game of the season when it needed to. And let's give some love to Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman, you need a statue, brother. You need a statue. You're telling me that heading to the trade deadline, the Eagles' biggest need was edge rusher. So what does Howie Roseman do? The guy who's never satisfied, the guy that's always looking to improve the Eagles, right? Never complacent. He trades a third-round pick to reunite Jaelan Phillips with Vic Fangio. And what happens in Jaelan Phillips' debut for the Eagles? He had 8 pressures, game high. He had 2 QB hits. He had 6 tackles. He had a fumble recovery. This guy was dominant. I mean, Jalen Hunt's first sack of the game, that was an assist from Jaelan Phillips. He caused that pressure to allow for Jalen Hunt to get an opening. What about that 4th down stop to end the game? What about that tackle for loss on Emmanuel Wilson? This brother was everywhere. And when you have Jaelan Phillips, Nolan Smith, Jalen Hunt, Jalen Carter, Mora Jomo, Jordan Davis, this defensive line is just ridiculous. I know Clint Hurt, the defensive line coach, is out this joint licking his chops like, I done got myself another weapon. Another weapon. What we have here, tackle for loss, Nakobe Dean. Let's talk about Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean quite possibly had his best game as a Philadelphia Eagle. In that first half, he was the MVP. He was everywhere. Open field tackles, solid in coverage, rushing the passer. Oh my gosh, that strip sack on Jordan Love. Jordan Love not making great plays, but what does Nakobe Dean do? He capitalizes off of stupid plays. And Nakobe Dean coming back from injury, a lot of folks tried to write him off. A lot of folks said, hey, I see this new shiny toy, and we love Jahad Campbell. But you're acting like 2 legends can't coexist. So let's talk about Jalen Carter, who, coming off the bye week, he had that injured shoulder. I think he had something else was wrong with him. He had another injury, I think a heel injury or something. He was able to, get healthy. He had 2 pass breakups in the first half. He was phenomenal. Oh my gosh. Talked about every single level. What about the secondary? Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson. He played his best game of the year. Like, we'll give credit where credit is due. Quinyon Mitchell was phenomenal. Y'all got to learn what football is. That wasn't no PI. He's right there. He's being aggressive. Quinyon Mitchell, that's what he does. He locks people up. What did Jordan Love have in this game? He had a $176, less than 5 yards per pass. It was a very pedestrian night for that brother. Ultimately, Vic Fangio and this Eagles defense carried. They carried. But also, I want to talk about this offense. And obviously, we're going to talk about this offense. But before I do, like, comment, subscribe, we have to talk about that play call on 4th and 6. Nick Sirianni, 4th and 6, less than 45 seconds remaining in the game. The Packers have no timeouts. You're up 3, 10-7. You decide when you're up 3 with less than 45 seconds left, 4th and 6, to throw a deep shot to A.J. Brown. I want to be mad, but I respect the way that Nick Sirianni is thinking. Because that play call is trusting your offense. That play call is trusting your defense. Let me explain. Because Sirianni knows if we get this first down, game over. Game's over. So why not put the ball in your playmakers' hands and have them win the game? There have been times that the Eagles decide to kick the ball and then their defense gives up a last second touchdown. And then now we're saying, why didn't you put the ball in your playmakers' hands? So I respect the decision because not only was it giving respect to the Eagles offense, it was also like, well, the defense has been playing well this whole entire game. Even if we give the Packers favorable field position, we expect our defense to hold up. Now, Jordan Love let the Eagles off the hook because Christian Watson was open. And if he led him more to the boundary, that's a catch. It probably goes to overtime. Never know what happens, right? So, yes, Jordan Love's play, he was not good today. Let the Eagles off the hook in some aspects. The Eagles defense had their best game of the year when they needed to. So that's what that is there. Now, when you talk about this Eagles offense as a whole, let's talk about this. I'm not mad at Kevin Patullo. I actually think if you watch the game, he wasn't that bad. He was decent. He was cool. Here's my thing, bruh. Y'all are not giving the Packers defense enough credit. Kevin Patullo is up against a top 5 defensive coordinator in the game. Jeff Hafley literally had Kellen Moore's offense in the playoffs being non-existent. Folks forget. People have revisionist history. In the wild card round against the Packers, that was also a defensive game. So y'all are expecting Kevin Patullo and these guys to go berserk. Yes, did I expect that? Yeah, I was wrong. But I'm not going to just criticize him for not getting it done when I'm seeing Adrian Cooper go crazy. I'm seeing Micah Parsons go crazy in this game. I'm seeing Rashawn Gary go crazy. I'm seeing Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney be everywhere. Like that Packers secondary was amazing. It was amazing. Now it took DeVonta Smith being the top 5 wide receiver that he's been this season, to break through and get that touchdown and open the game up. But I want to give respect to the Packers defense because we got to stop acting like, oh, it hurts. Throw the ball hurts. Throw the ball hurts. Dog, it's a defensive game. It's a defensive game. If it's 3rd and long and you're in the Packers territory and the score is 0-0 in the 3rd quarter, I'm running the ball, being conservative, and I'm kicking the damn field goal. Folks got to realize that Packers defense is nice. What did they do to the Lions? The Lions got Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. They got weapons all around. They essentially held that team to 6 points outside of a late touchdown at the end of the game. So this was the toughest defensive test that Kevin Patullo and the Eagles offense had this season. And if it wasn't for penalties, if it wasn't for a turnover, they would have put up more points. I think if it wasn't for penalties and the turnover in the first half, and penalties were the whole entire game. But those two things are the reason why the Eagles only had 10 points. Like, outside of those, if it wasn't for that fumble, those penalties, I think the Eagles put up like 17, 10, 17, 20 points, 17, 20. Probably get an extra field goal. Probably on that, first quarter drive when Hurts fumble, you go out here and you get a touchdown there. So I do think that Patullo did some good things. You saw DeVonta Smith get active. You saw Dallas Goedert at times. He got active, right? I mean, Jalen Hurts had Grant Calcaterra wide open. That could have been a walking touchdown. He overthrew him. It wasn't Hurts' best day, but he made the play at the end. We'll talk about that a little bit later. He's a clutch guy. But it's getting lazy blaming Kevin Patullo for everything. And y'all know I'm not saying the guy is Sean McVay. I'm not saying the guy Kyle Shanahan. I'm not saying the guy Andy Reid. What I am saying is get a guy some grace. That was a damn good defense he faced. And again, look at the Lions. The Lions' prolific offense. And stop this. I'm getting tired of this. Folks like, well, the Cowboys, they dropped 40 points on the Packers. Bruh, was it below freezing outside? It was in a dome. It's way different. And obviously, the Packers coming off a loss as a 13.5-point favorite to the Panthers, their defense was gonna go berserk. And I called a blowout. I was wrong. I should have kept that in mind because defense is a lot about effort. It's a lot about just do you want it more than the other guy? And obviously, the Packers defense had a great game plan. They were stopping explosive plays when they could. But ultimately, the Eagles' talent prevails at the end. Let's talk about that. Saquon Barkley, 41-yard catch and run. That spin move in the open field was disgusting. Oh my God, that Joan was filthy, bruh. And what did it do? It set up the 36-yard touchdown to DeVonta Smith. See, the Eagles have too many playmakers, no matter how good your defense is, for you to keep them at bay. And you might keep them at bay for the first quarter, for the first half, for the third quarter. But one thing that I know is that connection between Jalen Hurts and DeVonta Smith this season has been money. What happened in that Chiefs game? It was that bomb, Hurts to DeVonta Smith, set up a touchdown, iced the game. In this game, it was a Jalen Hurts, DeVonta Smith bomb that essentially sealed the game, put the game out of reach. It was a clutch play. DeVonta Smith this season, he's been a top 5 wide receiver. You can definitely argue top 5. This guy is top 10 in passing. I said passing. He's top 10-ish, top 11 in receiving yards. And this offense doesn't throw the ball as much. He's with the first-time offensive coordinator. I ain't gonna lie. If Hurts did not miss him in that Giants game, he's probably top 5 in passing yards. I mean, he had a $180 against the Vikings. If you're just watching this season, I'm going to say it. DeVonta Smith has been the best wide receiver on the Eagles team. Now, A.J. Brown's impact is felt by just his presence. He attracts double teams. They always have to account for the presence of A.J. Brown. But DeVonta Smith's ability to create separation in zone coverage, in man coverage, it's a reason why he was my pick as the Eagles' offensive player of the year up to this point. Because the Eagles aren't the number 1 seed in the NFC. If it's not DeVonta Smith, who year after year has gotten better and better and better. I've always compared him to Tyrese Maxey because I feel like these guys are beloved in Philly. They get better each year. They don't do the drama. They just put their head down, they work, and that's what DeVonta Smith does. He is a baller. But Saquon Barkley, that 41-yard run, catch and run, that was amazing. And look, the penalties have to get cleaned up. Jordan Mailata, you got to lock in, big bro. You got to lock in, dog. I think Fred Johnson did a great job of filling in for Lane Johnson. That's a very, very hard task to do against that Packers front seven. Filling in for Lane Johnson. We all know the record with Lane Johnson versus without Lane Johnson. I feel like our guy, Big Fred, did a damn good job. And, Saquon Barkley's 15-yard run, who was there? It was Fred Johnson, first quarter of the game. I mean, that first quarter, the Eagles were going up and down the field. I mean, they were. They were on that first drive. On the first drive in the third quarter, they were going up and down the field. So look, I get the frustration with the offense. And I will admit that yes, the Eagles offense being inconsistent and their play calling being inconsistent earlier this season makes people even more annoyed when you see this offense put up 10 points. But I think that this team that they faced is different from the other defenses that they faced this year. Let's keep it a bean. Let's go Packers defense versus all the teams that the Eagles have faced this season. Packers, Cowboys, Packers. Packers, Chiefs, Packers. If you want to say tie, tie. But I would give the Packers the edge. Packers, Rams, Packers. Packers, Bucks, Packers. Packers, Giants, Packers. Giants again, Packers. Packers, Viking, Packers. That's right. This is the best defense they played this season. And again, it wasn't a clean, perfect game. Penalties and turnovers. They was able to move the ball a little bit. Hurts got 183 passing yards, 92 passer rating. Got to clean up that fumble, but that was a phenomenal forced fumble by Edgerrin Cooper. Yes, the ground game wasn't that great. You got 22 carries for Saquon, 60 yards. You had Hurts in there running a little bit. But again, I felt like we're being a little bit too harsh on my man, Kevin Patullo, because you're not going to see a defense that got a top 5 DC and, Micah Parsons caliber guy in the playoffs, unless the Broncos go out here and get to the Super Bowl. That's the only way. I mean, like the Rams, they got Jared Verse, amazing player. Chris Shula ain't no Jeff Halfley. The Buccaneers, they got Todd Bowles. They don't have a dynamic player on the level of Micah Parsons, on the level of Nick Bonito and these guys, right? They got Vita Vea, but in terms of like rushing the passer, it's not that. So again, my take on the 4th and 6 call at the end, I don't hate it. I would just say that you got to have a play that's lower risk, a higher probability. But it got me thinking, it's like, why were y'all forcing the ball to AJ? But again, it worked for them last year in that Browns game. So it makes sense to me right there. So I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that jazz. Share friend, share with a friend. Tomorrow morning, it's going to be, I woke up this morning and I got to have some thoughts for y'all. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. We are out.